In a quiet supermarket in a small American town, the kind of place where folks still say hello to strangers and the fluorescent lights hum softly overhead like an old familiar tune, Thomas Keller pushed his cart down the cereal aisle. He was 48, broad-shouldered from years of honest work, his gray polo shirt slightly worn at the collar but clean and tucked in neatly. His dark hair was starting to silver at the temples, and his face carried the gentle lines of a man who had known both laughter and quiet sorrow. Riding in the cart seat was his 7-year-old daughter, Sophie. She wore a bright pink dress that day, the one she loved because it twirled when she spun. In her small hands, she clutched a box of chocolate sandwich cookies, the kind with the creamy filling she called Happy Circles. Her brown eyes were wide with the simple joy of a child who still believed treats could fix almost anything. Behind them walked Emily, Thomas's 16-year-old from his first marriage. She wore the blue vest of a part-time cashier, her long brown hair tied back in a ponytail. She had just finished her shift and joined them to help carry bags home. Emily kept one hand on the cart, her expression calm but watchful, the way older sisters often are. They reached the checkout line. Thomas placed items on the belt slowly: milk, bread, apples, a small pack of ground beef for dinner, and finally Sophie's cookies. He counted out the bills in his wallet with care, making sure he had enough. The woman ahead of them was waiting for her items to be bagged. She was in her early 40s, strikingly beautiful with long blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, wearing a crisp white summer dress that spoke of money and confidence. Her name was Victoria Lang, though few in this town knew it. She was a billionaire who owned a chain of luxury resorts across Europe and the States. She had stopped in this ordinary supermarket on a whim, perhaps to pick up something forgotten from her hotel suite nearby. She carried herself with the assurance of someone rarely questioned. As the cashier scanned Victoria's few items, a bottle of imported mineral water, organic greens, Sophie accidentally bumped the cart forward a little too hard. The edge tapped Victoria's heel. Victoria turned sharply. Her blue eyes narrowed. She looked down at Sophie, then at Thomas, then back to the little girl holding the cookie box like a treasure. "Watch where you're going," Victoria said in English first, her voice clipped. Then, perhaps assuming no one around would understand, she switched to German, low but clear. The words meant only for herself, or so she thought. "Was für ein armseliger Vater mit seinen billigen Keksen und seinem schmutzigen Wagen. Kein Wunder, dass das Kind so ungesehen ist. Manchlut Sultan einfach nicht einkaufen gehen." What a pathetic father with his cheap cookies and his dirty cart. No wonder the child is so ill-behaved. Some people simply shouldn't go shopping. She smirked slightly, turning back to her transaction, satisfied with her private jab. Thomas paused. His hand rested on the cart handle. He looked at Sophie, whose face had fallen a little, though she didn't understand the words. Then he looked at Victoria. In a calm, measured voice, he replied in perfect, fluent German, the kind spoken by someone who had lived it, not just studied it. "Ich verstehe jedes Wort, das Sie sagen." I understand every word you're saying. Victoria froze. Her shoulders stiffened. She turned slowly, her face paling beneath the makeup. Thomas continued, still in German, his tone steady and kind, without anger, but firm enough to carry weight. "Mein Tochter ist nicht ungesehen. Sie ist 7 Jahre alt und freut sich einfach über ein kleines Vergnügen. Und dies Keks. Sie sind das, was ich mir leisten kann, nach einem langen Tag Arbeit. Aber sie machen sie glücklich. Das ist alles, was zählt." My daughter is not ill-behaved. She is 7 years old and simply happy about a small treat. And these cookies? They are what I can afford after a long day of work. But they make her happy. That's all that matters. He switched back to English then, so everyone nearby could hear, his voice gentle but clear. "Ma'am, I don't know what kind of day you've had, or what burdens you're carrying. But words have weight, even when spoken in another language. Especially when spoken about a child." Victoria's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, she had no quick retort. The cashier paused mid-scan. A few other shoppers glanced over quietly. Sophie looked up at her father, confused but sensing the shift. She tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, is everything okay?" Thomas smiled down at her, warm and reassuring. "Everything's just fine, sweetheart. We're almost done." Victoria stared at him for a long moment. Something softened in her expression, perhaps shame, perhaps recognition. She reached into her purse, pulled out $100 bill, and placed it on the belt next to Thomas's items. "For the cookies," she said quietly in English. "And, for the lesson." Thomas looked at the bill, then at her. He shook his head gently. "Thank you, but no. We pay our own way. Always have." He handed his cash to the cashier instead. Victoria nodded once, almost imperceptibly. She took her bag and walked away, heels clicking on the tile, but slower now, as if carrying something heavier than groceries. Thomas finished paying. He lifted Sophie out of the cart and set her on the floor. She slipped her small hand into his. As they walked toward the exit, Emily leaned close to her father. "You spoke German like it was nothing," she whispered. "I didn't even know you could." Thomas chuckled softly, the sound low and fond. "Years ago, before you were born, I spent time in Munich. Worked construction there for 2 years after your mom and I, well, after things changed. Learned the language on job sites, in pubs, from good people who shared their coffee and their stories. Life teaches us things we don't expect." He paused at the door, letting the cool evening air wash over them. "And sometimes," he added, "the best lessons come when we least expect them. Not in fancy boardrooms, but right here, in the checkout line." Sophie swung their joined hands. "Can we have the cookies tonight, Daddy?" Thomas smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling with real warmth. "Yes, little one. Tonight we have cookies. And tomorrow, we keep going, just like always." They stepped out into the parking lot, the sun setting low and golden, painting the ordinary world in soft light. Behind them, the supermarket door slid shut with a quiet whoosh. Life has a way of reminding us, in the smallest moments, that beneath the clothes, the money, the languages we speak or don't speak, we are all just people trying to do our best. Sometimes a sharp word reveals more about the speaker than the listener. And sometimes, a gentle reply in the right language can open a door that pride had kept closed. Thomas walked home with his girls, one small hand in his, one young woman beside him, carrying bags and carrying memories. The world felt a little kinder in that moment. If this simple story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales like this. And comment below, have you ever had a moment where understanding changed everything? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Take care, and be kind out there.